Steve Reid for the opposition is with us this morning. Good morning. Good morning. What happens?
Morning,
we were just talking there about him, the fact that he's lied previously, been sacked twice previously for lying. What happens if he lies to the committee and he's subsequently found to have lied?
Well, perhaps that's what he's doing with the submission that he's put in. But we're talking about a man here who has absolutely no regard for standards in public life and no regard for the truth. He's claimed for years now that he hadn't misled Parliament, and then yesterday he finally admits that he did mislead Parliament, but he didn't know. He's not responsible for what he did. Now, you will remember...
And he did apologise for that in the May of the following year.
But you'll remember, as I do, that video where we had the Prime Minister's press spokesperson, Allegra Stratton, standing at a podium laughing about the fact that they had been at a lockdown-breaking party in Number 10 the night before. Boris Johnson...
mean that Boris Johnson knew it was a party?
Well, Boris Johnson stood up in the House of Commons the next morning and said he shared the nation's shock, and then we found out he'd actually been at the party. Now, somebody who was at a party doesn't need to be told they were at a party. They know they were at a party.
Hundreds of people work at Downing Street, and it's a very small townhouse, and they're all crammed in there, and you're walking past people all the time.
I think when you're wheeling in suitcases full of booze and you've got music systems... He was at the party. You know, these are the lies. Yeah, this is the man who set the rules. He wrote the rules that the country had to abide by.
He was trying to navigate us through a pandemic.
The reason that people are so furious is because the British public followed those rules to keep everybody else safe. People missed going to their loved ones' funerals. People died on their own, but the Prime Minister who wrote the rules, who understood the rules, was breaking the rules. Now he's been called to account. What I hope will happen as a result of what we're seeing with this committee, which, remember, has a Conservative majority on it, is that Boris Johnson will finally accept responsibility for once for his behaviour and for the truth in this circumstance.
But it also has a Labour chair, and Peter Bone was sat where you were in the last hour, and he said she's biased.
It has a Labour chair, but it has a Conservative majority. Nothing on it can happen without the majority voting for it. So we'll see what recommendations the committee makes. It will then come back to the chamber of the House of Commons, and I expect we will have a vote on the sanction that is recommended. Now, I hope that Rishi Sunak will finally stand up to his former boss, that we won't see any repeat of where they tried to change the rules for Owen Paterson, leading to the crisis that contributed to Boris Johnson's downfall in the first place. If the government doesn't stand up for standards in public life, who on earth will?
No, standards in public life. It just so happens that I've been reading my Telegraph this morning, and your boss appears to be an absolute hypocrite when it comes to pensions.
Well, I don't think that's a fair thing to say.
Why not?
At all. OK. Well...
You nearly called me Keir then.
I very nearly did. I do know the difference. It wasn't Keir Starmer, as Director of Public Prosecutions, who set his own pension. That was set by the Conservative government at the time. So if people have problems with it, they really need to speak to David Cameron and George Osborne.
So he changed the rules when he...
It was for them.
Will he change the rules even when he's Prime Minister?
Well, the point is, this isn't really about Keir. And in any case,
exactly the contributions
that Keir made to his pension never reached the cap in any case. So those provisions don't apply. What happened last week was we had Jeremy Hunt announcing a budget in which he increased taxes on working people by freezing the tax thresholds. It's a form of stealth tax. He increased taxes on working people to the highest they've been for 70 years, and yet he felt that was an appropriate time to give the top 1% of earners a £1 billion tax
in order
bump.
to help doctors come back to work, which is what you guys wanted to do. Wes Streeting, the Shadow Health Secretary, said that was a great idea.
It is a great idea to help doctors, but why is he helping everyone else that's earning more than doctors as well?
Just to hive off doctors is what we're told. Anyway,
it isn't, because it was done for judges. It was done for judges, and if it can be done for judges, it can be done for doctors.
And directors of public prosecutions.
As part of the judges'
package.
Will
he change the rules if he becomes Prime Minister so that directors of public prosecutions, both now and previously, do not get this?
Well, the rules... Those schemes were put in place so that we didn't have an exodus of judges. And you know that we've got, the biggest backlog on record of trials. If we change the pension scheme for judges and lose judges, then what is already a 60,000 backlog in the Crown Courts, 3-year delays for justice will get even worse.
It's OK for leaders of the Director of Public Prosecutions. It's OK for doctors. It's OK for everybody who goes to Oxford and Cambridge. I mean, where do you draw the line?
If you don't do it for doctors, then we'll see more doctors leaving overwhelming the health service, and we've already got 7 million people on the waiting list. So I think there is a case. There is a case for doctors. What Jeremy Hunt didn't need to do was raise stealth taxes on working people to the highest that they've been for 70 years, at a time when inflation, we've got those figures today, out of control, highest in the G7. People's wages are being held down, prices are going up in the shops, and Jeremy Hunt gave people the highest tax rate for 70 years.
Will Keir
It's just
Starmer
not
change
fair.
the rules as far as the Director of Public Prosecution's final salary and pension is concerned if he is Prime Minister?
What Labour has said
Is
is
that a
that
yes or a
we
no?
support the specifics for judges and for doctors.
And what
but
about
for everyone
former
else, it shouldn't
directors of
happen.
public
Well, the
prosecutions?
DPP is in there with the judges.
OK,
That's why it was done in that
So he will
way.
still be allowed to have his?
Well, the scheme was
Oh,
done in
my
that
goodness
way.
me. You can see how that's hypocritical for a lot of people watching this morning.
But it isn't. If people have got a concern about Keir's pension, talk to David Cameron and George Osborne, who put it in
That's why I'm
place
asking you
for
whether
the
he would change it if he
DPP
became-
at that
And you're
time.
saying you wouldn't change the rules even if you were in power?
It's part of the judges' scheme, and Labour's got no plan to change judges' pension
Understood.
arrangements, because you'd lose judges and then the delays in the courts would get worse. The key point here is the vast majority of the population have just had a massive tax hike, while the top 1% got a giveaway. Why is that the priority that the Conservatives have chosen at this time?